Hey everyone, welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast. And as you may already know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we don't think you'll be surprised when we tell you that mental health is a major issue in our world.
Well, Kat, you are so right. So here's a couple of things to ponder. Did you know that 53 million Americans are living with some form of mental illness?
Hmm.
Did you know that women are more susceptible to mental illness at like 26% as compared to men at 16%? Americans aged 18 to 25 are in the highest risk group for mental illness at 31%. And the average delay between onset of mental illness symptoms and treatment is 11 years. I mean, that's
Wow.
just let that sink in for a minute.
Mhm.
And this is clearly, Katrina, as you said, this is clearly an important topic that affects millions of people.
Absolutely. And you are so right, Jefferson. So today we've got two experts with mental health lived experience as our guests, and we're going to focus on three things. One, making sure that you or a loved one feels heard with regards to what you might be going through. Two, making sure that you're aware of resources available to you and your loved ones, resources that are free to you through the organization that we're featuring today called NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And three, providing you with some practical, helpful tips that anyone listening to our podcast can use to decrease stress, anxiety, and help you catch your breath in this complicated and busy world.
Right. So before we continue, if you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, you can call or text 988 or chat via 988 lifeline, all one word, .org. 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. And of course, you can always call 911 if it's an emergency.
Thanks, Jefferson. So our guests today are Brenda Sarai Zuniga and Elizabeth Stevens. Brenda is a comedian, actress, writer, keynote speaker, and well-established mindfulness coach. She's created mindfulness workshops and keynotes for numerous universities and organizations, including USC, Green Dot Public Schools, the Miss Universe organization, Fusion Academy, as well as NAMI Westside LA. In 2020, she also created a video podcast titled Getting Mental with Brenda Sarai Zuniga, which provides mental health education in a fun and relatable way by blending comedy, music, and mental health. She's been featured in the LA Times, KTLA Weekend Morning News, Voyage LA, and the George Lopez Foundation.
Elizabeth Stevens is the program director at NAMI Westside LA. Elizabeth is passionate about mental health advocacy and ensuring that the appropriate mental health services are accessible to all. She teaches peer classes and leads peer support groups that are designed to support adults with mental health conditions as they navigate the barriers they come across in both the mental health care system and society as a whole.
All right. Well, those are some awesome bios on our guests, Brenda and Elizabeth. Welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you for having me.
So exciting to be here.
So, Elizabeth, we're going to start with you. Since you work for NAMI, can you tell us what is NAMI exactly and what is NAMI all about?
Absolutely. So NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and there's over 600 affiliates in the US. And so I'm coming to you from NAMI Westside LA, but all of the resources can be accessed at your local NAMI affiliates, which is really wonderful. It means that wherever you are, you can access NAMI's free programs and services. NAMI offers free classes, free support groups, educational programs for both family members who are supporting someone living with a mental health condition, as well as peers, so someone living with a mental health condition. And it really is on a national level, along with the state and local level, also working towards eradicating the stigma around mental health, really having conversations like this one where we can talk openly about our mental health. And then also on a policy level, making sure that we're prioritizing mental health.
That's fantastic. So, Brenda, here's a question for you, and then Elizabeth, you can follow up with it. So, in both of your experiences, for the benefit of those listening who have friends or loved ones going through a mental health journey, how do you help people feel seen and heard, and how important is that?
First and foremost, I validate that there's nothing wrong with their experience and that they're not faulty individuals in the sense that there's anything wrong with them. Like I make sure that I validate that they're human and what they're experiencing, there's a reason for it. Like it comes from somewhere and we need to dive into that. Like this is one of the things that I love to talk to my clients about whenever they come to me and they're like, is this normal? I shouldn't be feeling depression. I shouldn't be feeling anxiety. And I'm like, well, no, like there's a reason why our body is telling us, hey, we're feeling nervous about this. And there's a reason why our brain is like hyper-focused on certain situations. We need to regulate our central nervous system and we need to find out where this stems from and we need to sit with it. We need to feel it. So, and then I share my own journey of overcoming anxiety, depression, and my own journey with dealing with ADHD, or I should say living with ADHD, because sure, my ADHD can cause some issues here and there, but it's something that I'm very proud of. I love it. I think it's my superpower. And of course, if I don't have my structure and routines that I need to follow, it can be challenging.
That's amazing. So, I know you have something to do with ending the silence. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I am an Ending the Silence presenter, and NAMI helped me tremendously with finding my own story and helping me heal so much with, oh, wait, yeah, there isn't anything wrong with me. Like what I tell my clients, it's the same thing that NAMI helped me so much in realizing.
What does that mean? When you're talking about ending the silence, because I don't know anything about it, does that mean you encourage people to tell people about your situation and be like honest and upfront, or I have no idea. What does that mean?
Yeah, Ending the Silence is a program that we bring to schools and we educate children, we educate teens, and we have Ending the Silence for families too. So we also educate families on warning signs, symptoms, and characteristics on mental health conditions. And we walk them through the process of what they can expect, how to be there for a loved one, or if they themselves are going through something, here are some proactive steps that we can take. And by the way, NAMI Westside LA, we just did our first ever all Spanish Ending the Silence presentation. And I'm so proud. It was me, Monse, Lily Rosen, of course, Elizabeth, and the whole NAMI Westside LA team that put all this together and made it happen.
Oh, that's amazing. So are you saying you had all like Latinx people, or it was in Spanish, or what do you mean by that?
I went to a middle school, and I'm trying to remember which one. I went to a middle school and I led it, and then I had a virtual young adult presenter who zoomed in, and both of us in Spanish were able to lead this presentation with Spanish slides and talk to these Latino kids about mental health, which was the first time they were really hearing about it. So, and this was all made possible by our NAMI Westside LA team.
This is fantastic. So Elizabeth, can you weigh in about feeling seen and heard and how important that is?
I love that question. That's really what we try to do here at NAMI. I know for me in my own journey with mental health, I don't know about y'all, but like I did not grow up talking about mental health. This is like a very taboo subject. And so when I first got diagnosed with bipolar disorder and anxiety, I felt an immense amount of shame and a lot of internalized stigma. I really just wanted to like hide that diagnosis. And so when I found NAMI, it was really at a point where I was looking for a peer community. So not necessarily folks who have the same exact diagnosis or lived experience as me, but just people who are willing to talk about about their own mental health openly. That was like a really revolutionary concept to me. And it made me want to join the team and start doing that for others. I saw what the peer leaders were able to do for me in my own journey. I was really at the beginning of accepting that, okay, I need to take care of my mental health. This is something that runs in my family. Just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And now in my work at NAMI Westside LA, I really try to create spaces where people feel like, oh, like we can talk about this. One of my co-leaders, actually, my first ever group that I led, Garrett, he often says, like, I'm taking off my society hat. And when I come into the groups, I'm just able to like be myself and talk openly about it. So feeling seen and heard helps reduce the stigma, which then for me, in my own experience, helped me go seek help and start getting some coping strategies that worked for me, because I was no longer just trying to hide it or try to just get through the day. It was like, okay, no, like let's prioritize this.
Destigmatizing and letting people know they're not alone. I just think that's wonderful. Elizabeth, so you mentioned this in working specifically with NAMI Westside LA. And Brenda, I'd love for you to weigh in after this as well. So specifically NAMI Westside LA, what are some of the resources available and how are they helpful?
So at our affiliate, we have support groups. So that's kind of what you think of when you think of a general support group, but they're led by peers or family members for peers and family members who have been trained in the NAMI model of facilitation. So that means that our services are brought to you by folks who have been there themselves and lead these spaces where people can talk about what's happening with either them or their loved one and receive feedback from the group, because we've all been there. We have a lot of wisdom to share, and in a space where people aren't going to judge you. The subjects are nothing's unexpected. And so our support groups, we run them weekly. We have both Zoom and in-person options, and those are really wonderful paired with our classes. So we have family-to-family classes and peer-to-peer classes. These differ from the support groups in that they're an 8-week educational program that folks register for. There's a curriculum. Don't worry, no outside homework, but there's reading, worksheets. Every week builds upon itself in some way of either living well with a mental health condition or supporting someone living with a mental health condition. I know, Jefferson, you and I have a lot of experience teaching classes together and the community that creates. And then a lot of folks who take the classes go on to attend our support groups weekly, or vice versa. Some people who come to the support groups, that's how they learn about our classes. So those two programs complement each other well. And then Brenda was talking about our Ending the Silence program, which is the mental health presentation that we bring to middle and high school students around the West Side. And this is something that you can request from any of your local affiliates. We bring in presenters who either identify as family members or peers, and they share kind of a mental health 101 of what to look for, what can you do if you or your friend are experiencing symptoms of mental health condition. And then a young adult close in age to the students shares their own story. And you can really tell the students engage so much with that and our question and answer. They're like, wow. I know for me, if someone had come in and had that conversation when I was in high school, that would have been game changing to have two folks openly talk about it.
No doubt. This just sounds incredible.
So Brenda, you said you did a presentation in Spanish. Is there more, less, or the same stigma in the Hispanic community about mental illness?
Oh, there's definitely more.
More. Why do you say that?
It's just our culture. There's zero talk about mental health in the Latino community. It's very demonized, and it's a very, very heavily religious-led culture, I want to say. There's not much education. So, a lot of times they just say, pray things away, or talk to God, he'll fix everything, and we hear that in every culture. We hear that in society today, right? But in Latino communities, it's way heavier, a lot of denial, a lot of fear around anything that has to do with mental health. And so this is why no one talks about it. Things are swept under the rug even more. People are called weak-minded, if they exhibit any sort of symptoms of being human. So it was absolutely incredible to be able to speak to these teens and give examples on like my aunties and my uncles and how they would react to their own mental health struggles. And all of the kids were like, that's my aunt. A lot of them like, that's my uncle. So like these kids were like, oh my gosh, she's talking about her family. And representation matters, to see a Latina be like, hey, I've been through what you're going through and I'm out here on the other side, and I've used all these resources that NAMI is here to teach you. If I can do it, you can too. It's the most rewarding feeling ever.
You're just doing such a service for people with this organization and with what you do. I wanted to ask you both, like, we always love to provide our audience with practical advice. And so we were wondering if you could share with us one thing you find helpful that people can do right now or every day or in the future to improve their mental health.
Find a supportive community. NAMI Westside LA, I have so much love for absolutely everyone who works at NAMI Westside LA. And it doesn't even feel like they're their coworkers or anything. It feels like we're family. It feels like we're just all in this together, and it feels so supportive. And NAMI Westside LA has truly changed my life, and it changes the lives of so many people. And I just couldn't be more proud of this organization and the community that it fosters. So I would say, look for a community, a supportive community.
That is great advice. And Brenda, we saw you on something where you had a kind of hug yourself activity. Could you share that with us as well?
Yes, of course. It's a practical tool. And this is something that we can all do to make us feel loved and empowered. And don't be fooled by the easiness of this technique, okay? But this technique is based and backed by neuroscience, okay? So I want everybody to give themselves a nice big hug. Nice big hug, nice
doing it. We're all hugging ourselves. If you're just listening, you guys, I want whoever's listening, please take your arms and wrap them around yourself. And what should we say to ourselves in our mind or whatever? Because when I did that this morning, I did it this morning because I've been doing it since I saw that you did it, Brenda. I just say, oh, Katrina, I love you so much and it's going to be okay. And it's going to be a great day. Anything you like to say to yourself, Brenda?
Brilliant. That's brilliant. You telling yourself, I love you so much. Like, it's going to be a great day. That's brilliant. And I remember I just saw you right now. You were kind of moving back and forth, to the sides. And there's a reason for that, by the way. The reason why we sway back and forth is because our mammalian caregiving system is activated. Now, what does that mean? That means that when we were first born, what was the first thing that happened? We were held. That's the first thing that happened.
Well, the first thing that happened to me was the doctor smacked me, but then we were held. Gotcha. I'm with you. I'm tracking you.
Yes, exactly. That's the first thing that happened. We were held. Unfortunately for Jefferson, he was smacked,
but then held.
But then held. Jefferson was the exception to the rule.
No, but that's true. That's funny. I didn't know that. I just instinctively was like rocking side to side and hugging myself. It just felt like, and that's of course what we do with our babies. We hold them, we kind of bounce them a little, and we rock side to side. So yeah, do it to yourself. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Brenda. Elizabeth, do you have some favorite things or a favorite thing you would recommend?
Brenda, first of all, I love when you do that exercise. And so I'm glad I had a reminder to do it today. For me, I find that I sit in front of a computer a lot. I don't know about anyone else, but I find that if I do not get outside to just walk for at least 20 to 30 minutes, I have a dog. He's a scruffy little terrier. If we don't get outside, it really does affect my mental health to not move at all. And to just be, especially like the start of COVID and since, I feel like I've just been sitting at a desk for a while, minus some of the work we do in the community, but it can be a lot of sitting in front of the computer. So I really need to get better at it. And I set a little reminder on my phone, an alarm. I'm like, okay, it's time. If you haven't been outside, this is the time to do it.
That is fantastic. I mean, that is such a simple thing that everyone can do. And I think so many people can relate to that. I certainly, it's like instinctively you want to do that. And it's such a great practice. It can be meditative. You could be with someone you love and just walk. I do that every morning with my husband. I also heard that doing it in the morning, because you get the morning light in your eyes, it sets your circadian rhythm, and that there's something great about walking in the morning and just getting natural light in your eyes. You're not even supposed to wear sunglasses. Have you heard about that?
Absolutely. My psychiatrist actually told me that. So now my alarm has been pushed earlier so I can get that sunlight.
Oh, that's fantastic. Would you all like to add any more of your favorite practical advice for our audience?
I would absolutely love to add solfeggio frequencies. I love solfeggio frequencies, and these are frequencies that tap into the different brain waves.
Could you spell that? Because for those of us who are challenged and were smacked at birth, can you spell that word? What is that?
It's called solfeggio, and it's SOLFEGGIO.
Solfeggio. Okay.
It's solfege. I know you're going to say something about singing or something.
Yes, they're based off of the chants. So the solfeggio frequencies, they tap into the different brain waves to elicit different feelings in the mind and body. The higher the frequency, the more stimulation you'll feel. The lower the frequency, the more relaxed you will feel. So I love meditating to these frequencies. I also love EFT tapping, which is an emotional freedom technique. It's so beneficial. I love this technique. Again, meditation, walking, like Elizabeth said, I love walking to my Trader Joe's. That's like a 20-minute walk. Oh, love it. Same thing. I also love somatic hip exercises. And I want to make sure I say this because somatic hip stretching exercises are so good for trauma release. Because
so what are you doing? Tell our, because some people watch this video and some people listen. Are you stretching from side to side on your hips?
It's more than that. There's videos on YouTube for like trauma release, hip stretching, somatic exercises. And what they do is they are meant to target your hips because we store a lot of emotions in the hips. We store so much stress and trauma in the hips.
You're so right. My hips don't lie.
Don't lie. Your hips don't lie.
I know those of us women who have babies in our hips and they get stretched out, these hips are storing a lot. So we need to get on YouTube for these things. Like,
you can look on YouTube, you can find them on Spotify. Honestly, if you just Google solfeggio frequencies and the different types of frequencies, the different numbers, you'll have all that information there. So
okay, and then the hip, what are we Googling for hips?
Hip release and trauma release hip stretches. Oh, like that. You'll see a lot of videos where people bring up somatic exercises, or you can also just YouTube somatic hip stretching.
Oh, I love it. And Elizabeth, anything that you want to say?
I'll just add in one more. This one I actually got from my psychiatrist. I tend to have a lot of anxiety, especially when the to-do list is getting too long, and I can feel really frozen by it and like not know where to start or what to do. And it can kind of snowball into this anxiety spiral. And so one thing that she suggested I do is to set aside a certain period of time in the day. So for me, it's like 6 p.m. after I've kind of started signing off, and set aside 10 minutes to just, she calls it like worry journaling, just get it all on paper. And so when it comes up in the middle of the day for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to save that for 6 p.m. and think about that then so that I can kind of keep moving through the tasks. But I really liked that one. She told me that about 3 years ago, and it's really stuck with me and like something I've actually implemented. I'm not the best journaler. I try to be, like, I really want to be a journaler, but this works. It's kind of a stream of consciousness anxiety moment.
I was going to say, I don't think anyone's judging that, and it should be probably just done with no judgment of what you're writing. You're just writing down what's worrying you. That sounds amazing. I'm doing that.
Yeah, you know what I think is fantastic about Brenda, what both you and Elizabeth have shared, is that we have to create a space for self-care. During a busy day, you think of all the things that clog your schedule. is there 10 minutes out of that scheduling that says just completely self-care, decompressing, whatever. And Elizabeth, you had mentioned you set your alarm, whatever prompts we need to kind of remember, oh yeah, it's time for decompression or self-care.
And I have a sneaky suspicion breathing is in there too, because sometimes I just stop breathing. So,
Well,
you know what I mean?
And Elizabeth and I both know that, like, in one of the many of the classes that are taught at NAMI, they introduce this concept. And you're so right, Katrina, because at first people feel a little weirded out by it. What does this mean? But most always people respond with, wow, I never tried that before. And just breathing, getting in your body is so helpful. So you are absolutely right on the money. So for our audience, for all of our Crazy Amazing Humans podcast community, I'm sure that we've piqued people's interests. So can you both tell us how our audience can learn more? And Brenda, I'll start with you. Any websites, anything that you'd like us to go to kind of follow your journey, including your own podcast?
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. For those of you who want to learn more about the content that I make and any more inquiring of the workshops that I produce and create and mindfulness coaching, you can reach me at official Brenda Z. That's official Brenda, and then just the letter Z. You can also look me up on my website, BrendaSaraiZuniga.com.
So Elizabeth, same question. How can people get in touch? Well, let's say with NAMI nationwide, let's start there, and then NAMI Westside LA specifically.
Yeah, so for NAMI nationwide, easy, NAMI.org, you'll be able to see all of the resources that NAMI offers. And then there's also a place where you can find your local affiliate. So if you're not over here on the west side of Los Angeles, you can use that tool to find the one closest to you. And then also explore some of the programs that we talked about in more detail. But for NAMI Westside LA, our website is NAMIWLA.org, and NAMI WLA is also the handle for our social media accounts. So you can keep up with us on there. But one resource that you can also use from our office specifically is our warm line. So a warm line, if you haven't heard of it, is not a hotline. So it's not a crisis line. It's for resource referrals. And also if you just want someone to talk to, we have peers and family members who have been trained to do resource navigation. So if you're interested in utilizing that resource, that number is our office line, 310-889-7200.
Wonderful. And we'll put all this information on our website.
Absolutely. And we want to thank you, Brenda and Elizabeth, for sharing your wisdom, your expertise, and your experience with us. You two are indeed crazy amazing.
Today's episode of the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast is brought to you via Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All episodes are free, so make sure and subscribe today.
Wow, we are so grateful for our guests, Elizabeth Stevens and Brenda Sarai Zuniga. This is such an important subject, and I'd like to take a moment to brag on Jefferson because he has been walking the Crazy Amazing Humans walk by facilitating support groups at UCLA and teaching an 8-week course online for NAMI. So I really, if it's okay with you, Jefferson, I really wanted to ask the same questions of our beloved Jefferson that we asked our guests. So here we go. You ready, Jefferson?
Yes, I'm ready.
Here we go. So in your experience, how do you help people feel seen and heard, and how important is that?
I'm going to say that because of the stigma, a lot of the stuff that Elizabeth and Brenda spoke of, because of the stigma, there is like this feeling of like I'm just faulty. Something's really wrong with me. And depending on your upbringing, Brenda mentioned like culturally, you can have a lot of stigma. Anyway, so feeling seen and heard is absolutely essential. Through NAMI, of course, they say you're not alone. And there's just a tremendous amount of relief in my own mental health journey. When I first went to therapy, I realized, wow, I stigmatized myself.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Right. And it keeps you from asking for help. Like you think to yourself, oh, I should just man up. I'm talking about from a male perspective. I should man up, walk it off. Don't let this get you down. But really what you're doing is you're empowering anything that's secret like that. It becomes so much bigger. The monster becomes so much bigger. And so as soon as you give voice to it, or what did Elizabeth say, like journal and just getting it out, but sharing it in front of people too. And is
Can I just
so
interject
powerful.
something here? I want to
Yeah.
interject that, you know, we said one of those statistics you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast is that the average daily delay between onset of mental illness symptoms and treatment is 11 years. So obviously to be seen and heard is hugely important, right? Because you haven't been seen and heard for 11 years, if not more. I feel like 11 years. I had mentioned that to somebody the other day, and they said, that doesn't even seem like enough. And I said, well, I think it's been like 40 years for me. So
Well, it's funny you say
kidding,
that,
but,
because
I mean, for real, like you do, like I
Right.
think I didn't know what like being anxious or anxiety was, because I would just say, I'm so nervous, like before I got on stage or something like that. But it was a lot. It was a
Right.
lot. And
Well,
I could have used
society,
some real help.
may say, you don't admit such things,
Right.
right? Don't bring this up because now you're weak.
Or you're giving it power. Like, oh, when you say you're that, then now you're going to be that. So, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like you're
right.
kind
That's
of
a
giving
great
it power.
point.
That's another thing that is like, you don't
Yeah.
want to say it because you don't want to give it power. You
Right.
don't want it to be. No one wants mental
When the
illness.
opposite is true, if you say it, it loses
Yeah.
its power,
It's really
which is
weird.
fantastic. But I
It's
remember
true.
testing the waters when I was in high school. I started, you were mentioning the 11
Mhm.
years.
Yeah.
I started feeling those signs. When you look back, you can see it. And I tried to, speak to people, my peers, and just kind of share about like, I'm just not feeling that good. I remember one girl telling me, oh, excuse me, Mr. Doom and Gloom. And it just made you realize, okay,
Ooh,
people are
yeah.
not wanting to
Yeah, and
hear.
people don't know. She doesn't know. And that, it was really of our age too, by the way, of
I
our,
agree.
where we grew up. Because like certainly in my family, mental illness was hugely stigmatized. Not Latina, like it's not about like, I don't know, culturally, it's like our culture was that way. I mean, back in the 80s, whatever. You didn't.
Right. In the NAMI support groups where I'm a facilitator, which is a peer-to-peer kind of situation. Hey, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, but what's profound is just to be able to listen and give people space to talk about their journey and allow them to process their own way forward. It's never like, okay, everybody dump your worst and we're just going to park there. It's not like that. It's like, phew, I got that off my chest. And now let's aspire, knowing that reality, incorporating that. How can then we aspire to be our best selves without stigma and with a feeling of support? That's what I love about what I'm doing with the NAMI support groups. Go ahead.
That's amazing. So you're leading me right into my next question, which is you work specifically with NAMI Westside LA. So
Correct.
what are some of the resources available that you like to highlight and how are they helpful?
I'm going to say from my own personal experience, like if you go to the website, you'll see a ton of things that you can access. But for me personally, so I teach, it's a peer-to-peer class where, you're basically learning life skills, how to not punish yourself for the way you are, but then like I just suggested, finding ways forward. How can I incorporate that reality and then find great ways to still live into my best self? So that I think is really super important. That's an 8-week life skills class. And then there are ongoing virtual support groups that you can join, and you just come in and you share your reality. And it's not so much people fix you. I just want to make sure I paint an accurate
Yeah.
portrait of NAMI.
Uh-huh.
It's not like you come in and everyone's got great advice actually the contrary. This is people just sharing their reality. If someone's got something to share that's specific to your reality that might be helpful, we encourage it, but no one has the same journey.
Right.
And so I always say when I share, hey, this was kind of helpful for me. If it doesn't help you, no harm, no foul. Let it go, and we'll keep trying out different ideas. Something might click with you. But that's kind of wonderful because nobody comes in as an expert. We're all peer to peer.
Right. So I was going to say, anyone that's listening to this podcast right now, let's say they know someone who could really use NAMI. How do they actually say, hey, I wanted to let you know about this place? Because it feels a little bit, you know what I mean? How do you word that to somebody? I was thinking of someone myself who's child has an issue, a grown child, and I thought, gosh, I really want to recommend this. But how would you even phrase that?
I would say you just gently say, look, this isn't a cure-all. It's not a magic pill, but at least you won't feel alone. You'll find people who are, dealing with their own mental health journeys, and it's just wonderful to not feel alone. So if there's a way to kind of present it like that,
Okay, I love it.
Some magic thing.
I love it. Okay. And then, as you know, Jefferson Denim, we always like to provide our audience with practical advice. So can you share with us one thing that you find helpful that people can do right now to improve their mental health?
Yes. So Elizabeth shared getting out and making sure that you make time for some physical exercise. I'm going to share two things, if you don't mind. One is that because I know from all my therapy and my psychiatrist, psychologist, I have so many I've got a beehive in my head. And when you can get out of your head and just get into your physical body and being, whether it's the hug or breathing or a sound bath or whatever, so that you can get into your body. I go running 3 times a week. I need to do that because getting out of your head into your body is important.
Yeah.
And then secondly, and I learned this in my intensive outpatient program, thought challenge. This is just something that works for me. I have so many negative tape loops in my head. And I've inherited a lot of negative tape loops, I might say. And so when a thought occurs, this is what thought challenge is about. You get to examine that thought. Just because you have it doesn't mean it gets to rule the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so you get to say, now, wait a minute, is that thought here to do me harm or to be helpful? I now have the power to say, oop, that's harmful. I disagree. In fact, I won't believe you. F you, terrible thought. Which is,
I really want to know, like, how do you say it back to yourself? So we can identify those thoughts, but it's kind of hard to go, how do I get that out of my head?
Right. Well, you don't say it's going to go away. You just recognize it's there. And it's not just because it occurs to you doesn't mean it's something that needs an action from you. Other than I'm questioning that.
I disagree with that thought.
I disagree with that thought.
That thought doesn't serve me.
And then the last thing I will say, and it's tied into the negative thought thing. This was really hard, and I'm going to say it's still a challenge, especially when you were brought up with a lot of negative tapes, as I said.
So you're saying you were brought up with someone saying negative things to you about you.
And then I would catastrophize those things. And really, I think most people who, let's say you have a tough childhood and you internalize it, you don't think something's wrong with the parent. You think, oh, it's my problem. And you just internalize
it's my fault. It's my fault.
Right.
Yeah.
So in conjunction with thought challenge, I love a phrase, which is something I'm struggling with, trying to get better at it. It's called radical self-acceptance.
Cool.
Radical self-acceptance. It doesn't mean you're just settling. This is the thing that I had trouble with. Oh, you're just saying settle for second best, just be mediocre. It's okay. It's not that. In fact, it's completely courageous to say, and I think I'm going to say something, Kat, that maybe we've all heard a million times. If you don't have a well of self-esteem, you really have very little to give outside of yourself in the positive way. Garbage in, garbage out. Hurt people, those kind of phrases. So radical self-acceptance, that phrase, I'm just going to put that out in the atmosphere. And for me, and again, I'm just talking about my journey, and if this helps a listener, fantastic. Radical self-acceptance means I am okay. In other words, my caregivers would use shame thinking they were motivating me.
Oh.
Shame is awful. It does not motivate anyone. It only tears them down.
Yeah.
So if I want to go forward, let's say, if I want to go, come on, man, buck up, just like you're working out at a gym and a good trainer's pushing you. Shame ain't the way to do it.
Yeah.
So radical self-acceptance means I'm going to find healthier ways to motivate myself that incorporates a healthy sense of my self-worth. These are things that I incorporate every day to try to deal with my own journey.
Those are amazing. Thank you for sharing those, Jefferson. That is so helpful. I think just between you and Elizabeth and Brenda, this is just a plethora of things that we can pull from. So thank you so much. You are crazy amazing, Jefferson Denim.
As are you,
are
my awesome
crazy
partner.
Amazing. So everyone, that's our show. And we hope you really enjoyed it. We hope you found something that you can apply to your own life or someone you know. And if you've enjoyed today's episode and you think it would be meaningful and helpful for someone you know, be a crazy amazing human and share our podcast links with them.
Yes, please. Remember to make sure and subscribe to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We've also filmed the podcasts, so you can check us out on the Crazy Amazing Humans YouTube channel. And while you're there, make sure and leave comments because we love to hear what you're thinking.
That's right. And most of all, we want to make sure to thank you for being with us today. And remember that every little kindness has the potential to create crazy, amazing human experiences, one person at a time. And
as always, this week, we want to encourage you to find one thing that you can do to extend kindness and love in the world.
Yes.
I'm Jefferson Denim.
I'm Katrina Carlson. Stay healthy, stay connected, and we'll see you next time right here on the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy, amazing.
If you have any questions or comments about today's episode, please make sure to write us at crazyamazinghumans@gmail.com.